I am so excited to hang out with you guys another Saturday for another segment of Doctor to Doctor in the chat room right here on 94.7 FM. So glad that you guys come back every Saturday. When you do that, then I get to do this. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Got an interesting topic. I want to say first though that I hope you guys are doing well, that you're taking care, really, really good care of yourselves. People are still getting sick from COVID, so be careful with that. But otherwise, make sure that you're taking care of yourselves holistically, physically, mentally, and spiritually. Okay. Take care of you. Make sure you do that. We've got a very great show, a very interesting show, because that we discuss those relevant topics that impact our communities and our world. And today is no different. We're going to talk about gun safety today. We're going to talk about possibly some gun laws, and I know that they are different in every state. But all things about gun safety and gun control. We have today with us, we have Tye Maner, who, after finding himself at the range 3 to 4 times per week, shooting 200 to 300 rounds per visit for years, he was inspired to share his love for shooting and knowledge with others. He was constantly hearing stories about firearm training classes that were subpar in the learning experience and instructors that only saw classes as a revenue stream. Tye decided to close the gap, and in 2020, he took National Rifle Association classes to become a certified instructor. Since 2020, Tye has acquired 9 instructor certifications that range from basic pistol, rifle, and shotgun shooting to personal protection and defensive pistol shooting. His goal is to help others become proficient and get the most out of this sport, and if necessary, defend themselves, their families, and other innocent people. And we are so glad to have him in the chat room with us today. And we are so elated to have an opportunity to learn more about gun safety from someone who is an expert in the field. Thank you so much, Mr. Maynard, for being here. Now, am I butchering your name? Because I'm known to do that. Is it Maynard?
No, you can call me Mr. Maner. You can call me Ty. Just call me.
I got you. I got you. So I think I want to start. I told the audience about you being an NRA instructor. Tell us a little bit about the NRA, so we'll know what that is as we move through this discussion.
Okay, the NRA is an amazing organization. It's been around for decades and maybe even close to 100 years now. But what several things they do. One is they help train and develop shooters, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
just recreational competition or even hunting,
Mm-hmm.
or even self-defense, and if necessary. And they also fight for gun owners' rights. So they
Mm-hmm.
have lobbyists that go to Congress and the Senate, and they'll fight for our rights that in many cases are being eroded
Mm-hmm.
day by
Mm-hmm.
day.
With that said, let's talk about probably one of the reasons why these rights are being eroded. Crime today. Like, where are we with just how in your opinion, where would you well how bad would you say crime is?
It's getting rougher every day. I'm watching videos and I'm paying attention to the news on a daily, weekly basis because this is my lane.
Mm-hmm.
Pistol shooting, self defense, defensive personal protection.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm seeing more and more egregious attacks on law abiding citizens just minding their business, from pumping gas, going to the ATM, uh, just doing things regular people do. They're minding their business, but people see them as a target and as an opportunity for unlawful gain. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest things today is they will attack you when you're pumping gas, and or either they'll go in the passenger door while you're on the driver's side pumping gas. They'll steal your purse. They'll
You're
steal.
describing my biggest fear, and actually had something very similar happen to me. but it was just somebody there to intervene, at the time. But you're describing my current biggest fear,
Right.
like trying to be so strategic about when I get gas.
Right. That's right. And another thing that's been big recently, that's become really big, is they will follow you from the bank. In other words, sometimes there may be a teller inside the bank that will let their teammates know on the outside, uh, Dr. Shaw just made a big deposit, a withdrawal. She's
Mm-hmm.
wearing a black and red jacket with a red collar, and she has blonde hair. So they will mark you when you leave, and they'll follow you home. And as you're getting out of your vehicle, they will assault you. There are a lot of home invasions now. You're just home, minding your business, enjoying your family, and people will come in. And today, the assailants are normally in groups of 2 to 4.
Mm-hmm.
So it's becoming really, really bad. And I'm also a pastor, and we have to be vigilant because in the past 5 months there have been 4 assaults, attacks on churches. So it's prevalent in every area.
Yeah. And why do you think that it is? What do you think this uptick in crime is all about? Where is that coming from?
Wow. How much time do we have? It
Mhm,
could go all the way back to a lack of discipline in the home.
mhm,
Some cases, it's really not a father in the home that
mhm,
can enforce the rules and the policies. And so they're getting the attention out in the streets. And it's a lot. It could be a lack of also the ability to get a job or a job that will cover the expenses. Rent today is extremely high for a 750 square foot duplex. You're talking about $1,400 to $1,500 a month in rent.
mhm.
So instead of doing things the right way, people look for shortcuts in order to make ends meet.
What about our children, like our youth? You know, um, I'm in the Memphis, Tennessee area, and true Memphians get really offended when you talk about how bad crime is here. And people tend to say, "Well, if you don't like it here, just leave or whatever." And I'm like, or they may say things like, "Crime is getting bad everywhere," and I'm like, I get that, but I'm concerned about my area and where I'm living and my family's, being safety. So that's why I'm talking about Memphis because that's where I am,
Right.
right? And one of the real huge upticks is coming from our youth. From smashing windows, looking for guns. Like you said, you can't get gas without being concerned about some type of crime. I mean, it's like crime is happening in all age brackets, but we're seeing it more with our youth
Yes.
who
Yes.
don't even have to worry about jobs or
Right.
paying the bills.
Yes. Yes. And I'm also on the board for the Boys and Girls Club
Hmm.
in the Tampa Bay area, and we have about 22 clubs that we manage. And we have one of our fundraising events coming up on tomorrow, as a matter of fact. And one of the
Hmm.
things that we will hear graduates from Boys and Girls Club who are now adults, they will say that the Boys and Girls Club saved their lives. Something they had something else to do after
Hmm.
school was out when their
Hmm.
parents weren't home yet. They had some
Hmm.
place to go where they were being taught, they were being trained, they could play basketball, they could do sports, they could do something other than hang with the wrong people and
Hmm.
come up with ways to get in trouble.
Hmm. Yeah. So typically people don't necessarily think of shooting as a sport. How did you get into the sport of shooting? Like, I mean, I'm a country girl. Like, we did it all, like, with our granddaddies, our daddies, or whatever. But a lot of people aren't in that arena, right? And how did you just fall into the sport of shooting?
Well, grew up in the projects, and
Mm-hmm.
we all had BB guns,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a fun thing. But then when I was had my first daughter, her godfather happened to be in town,
Mhm.
And he said, hey, let's go to the gun range. I said, okay, great. That works for me. Never really shot a pistol much. I went with him. He shot, he brought two guns and he shot 5 times and he had one hole. So he put 5 rounds into one hole. I shot
Uh-huh.
5 times and I didn't hit the paper.
Oh, wow.
So I said, okay, he must have given me blanks. That's some type of non-pensionable paper. Something's not right. And I said, tell you what, let's switch guns. You take
Mhm.
my gun, I'll take your gun. So he took my gun and did something quite similar. Still
Mhm.
shot 5 times and a nice small group. I
Mhm.
shot his gun and I hit the paper one time this time. And
Uh-huh.
then I came to a conclusion. It wasn't the guns. It was the individuals behind the guns. But little did I know that day I was shooting with a captain in the United States Marine Corps who was also on their competitive pistol shooting team.
Okay.
And
Okay.
from that point, it was a lifelong journey for me to shoot at the level that I saw him shoot at. So I
Mhm.
started shooting. You might be sensing I'm pretty competitive at this point.
Yes.
So I started shooting 3 to 4 times a week,
Mhm.
200 to 300 rounds per time I went out there, and I developed the skill set and I started even training people, but I didn't have the ability to give them any types of certifications. So I went to many of the courses on to become a pistol instructor, rifle instructor,
Mhm.
shotgun, personal protection inside the home, personal protection outside the home, defensive pistol. I just kept elevating my skill set
Mhm.
and started my company. So now I can train people and also give them the certifications that they would like to have.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the difference in the constitutional carry and the
Okay.
concealed carry. Let's talk about the difference in those. And then let's talk about the benefits of having either or one versus the other.
Okay. Concealed carry has been around for a long time. That's when you have to take some type of course to
Mhm.
understand the laws of the federal laws as well as the state and local laws on what justifies deadly force, how to
Okay.
use the gun safely, when should you use less lethal force. Less
Mhm.
lethal force is anything that's less likely to cause great bodily harm or death. For example,
Okay.
I teach people, as skilled as I am, I've been carrying concealed now for 40 years. And as skilled as I am, my first line of defense is to avoid trouble. The Bible says a wise man sees trouble from afar off and avoids it.
Mm.
So I'm not going to go down that dark alley. I'm
Mhm.
not going to go towards 7 people that look like they don't have any real good intentions at this point
Mhm.
in time. So
Mhm.
I'm going to try to avoid trouble.
Mhm.
Secondly, if it's come to me, I'm going to try to de-escalate. Hey, my bad. I didn't mean to bump into you. Here, go ahead. You can have my spot. By the way, let me buy you that can of Coke. I don't have to prove anything to anyone. So I'm going to let the other person win. All right. Also, if they determine they want to fight and I don't see any weapons on them, anything that can really hurt me, I also carry pepper spray. So
Mhm.
I'll bless them with the pepper spray and let them think about their life choices as me and my significant other or my family get to safety.
Mhm.
So those are the choices before having to use deadly force. So concealed carry means you have shown the state that you understand the rules of firearm safety, that you can handle a gun safely, and you understand the laws. Uh,
Okay.
I think it's really important to get training, and we'll talk about. I'm sure we'll talk about that in greater
Mhm.
detail. So, concealed carry laws force you to get an education.
Mhm.
Constitutional carry means you just have to be of a certain age, rule considered an adult, and you can carry a gun, but it has to be concealed. You can't, well, some states now allow open carry.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on the state laws, you can carry either in the open or you still have to carry concealed, which means it cannot be seen to the naked eye.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there are some advantages, I think, to concealed carry and being forced really to take a course. One, you learn the laws. I had one lady that by the way, after taking the course, when she realized all of the responsibility that came with carrying a firearm, all of the possible ramifications from having to use it to defend yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Although you used it to defend yourself, uh, you may still have to go, you may still get arrested.
Mm-hmm.
You may still go before the court, the criminal
Mm-hmm.
system, and they may
Mm-hmm.
find that by jury of your peers that you were justified.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you were justified, there still may be a civil lawsuit by the family of the individual that you
Mm-hmm.
had to defend yourself against.
Mm-hmm.
So by getting the training, you understand it doesn't just end once you've used your firearm in a self-defense situation.
Mm-hmm.
They don't get that with constitutional carry. They just start carrying one day. They don't know the laws. They don't understand that in some states, because you feel threatened, you may pull your gun, and that's aggravated assault. That's brandishing.
That's
And
without using it,
yes, the
just
fact
pulling
that
it.
you lifted your shirt and showed it to someone to show them that you could harm them, you could be committing a crime. In some states, they don't understand that by you pulling your gun and firing a warning shot, that could be a crime in that particular state because that bullet has to land somewhere. So
Mm-hmm.
if you fire it in the air, a bullet can literally travel a mile and
Mm.
still hit someone who's innocent, had nothing to do with that situation. Well, some people may say, well, but I fire at the dirt. You can fire at the dirt and it ricochets off the ground. It can travel another 500 yards. So I tell my students that every round that comes out of your gun, understand that there's an attorney attached to it.
Wow. Wow, wow,
So
wow.
yeah, so if you're carrying constitutional, most people don't know the laws of what justifies the use of deadly force, when you can and when you can't show your firearm to someone. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot that goes to it that they don't learn, so they put themselves in jeopardy of coming in contact with the law
Yeah.
or civil litigation. Civil litigation.
Real quickly, do you think there should be an age limit, like, a higher age constitutionally that someone should be able to carry? Because it sounds like you're saying it should come with some education and maybe a sense of maturity or something.
I'm not sure going any higher would make a difference because I have some young people that are extremely mature. They're more mature than some 45-year-olds I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
For example, my son, I taught him how to shoot when he was probably 8 or 9.
Mm-hmm.
At 10 years old, I gave him a test on firearm safety,
Mm-hmm.
the use of a firearm, the parts of a firearm, and when he finally passed the test, I bought him a 22 rifle at 10. But he understood the safety and he understood the responsibility of having it. He didn't have it without my presence, where I have a huge gun safe. We keep it locked up. But literally at 10, he had his own firearm. There's some people at 50 I don't think should have firearms.
I got you. I got you. So let's talk about how the laws affect constitutional carry, and maybe even versus concealed carry. We're going to talk about that when we come
Sure.
back from break. We're headed to break. We'll be right back, guys, on Doctor to Doctor in the chat room, right here on 94.7 FM. We'll see you in a moment. And we are still here on 94.7 FM on Doctor to Doctor in the chat room, talking to Mr. Tye Maner. So we were talking about the constitutional carry versus the concealed carry. Are there other benefits for either?
Yes, absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. With concealed carry, once you get your license, at least here in Florida, and I think it may be that way in other states, you would have to check your local laws, your state laws.
Okay.
But in Florida, once you have your concealed carry license, if you choose to purchase another firearm, you can go into a gun store or go to a gun show. You see the firearm you like, you negotiate the price, you pay for it. They'll do a background check, and once you approve, you walk out that day with that brand new firearm.
Okay.
With constitutional carry, you still have a waiting period. In Florida, it's 3 business days.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's another advantage. Also, with concealed carry licenses, we have reciprocity with other states. So, in other words, there are approximately 36, 37 other states in the United States that recognize my concealed carry license in Florida. And I can carry in those states
Okay.
without being a resident or having their state's concealed carry license.
Or having to go through any trainings or whatever
That's
in their
correct.
state. It's just it's okay. It's admissible in their state.
Exactly. Now, I do recommend this before you carry in their states. Their laws may vary ever so slightly.
Mm-hmm.
So you may want to go. There's a website called concealcarry.com.
Okay.
And you can go to concealcarry.com and look at every state and see what their laws are. It may only vary slightly. For example, in Florida, if I'm carrying concealed and for whatever reason I get pulled over by law enforcement, I don't have to tell them that I'm carrying a firearm and I'm a concealed carry licensed carrier. I don't have to say anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
However, if I go one state over to Georgia, by law, I'm required to let them know that I have a firearm on me.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if I go to Georgia, I get stopped and somehow they pull me out, and then if I have a firearm on me, and I say, but I have a Florida license. They say, yes, but our law is that you must inform any law enforcement officer when you have a firearm on your person. But I didn't know. Well, what's that old saying? Ignorance
Yeah.
of the law
So,
is
uh-huh.
no excuse.
So I could be um I could have concealed carry in Tennessee and I could come to Florida and certain things about Tennessee will carry over to Florida and certain things will not necessarily carry over to Florida and it's my responsibility to know the difference.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
And with constitutional carry, you can't do that. You cannot go to other states that recognize our concealed carry and carry your gun and be within the law. You'll be in a whole lot of trouble. Now there are growing constitutional carry states.
Mhm.
Right now, I think there are 37 states that recognize Florida
Mhm.
concealed carry license. And last time I checked, there were about 25 constitutional carry states. So you can be from anywhere in the United States and you can carry in their states without any type of licensing. So right now, there are 37 states that accept. So guess what? We can carry concealed carry in concealed carry states and constitutional carry states. But if you're constitutional only, you can only carry legally in constitutional carry states.
I got it. All right. So when you talk about open carry,
Yes.
I think I know what open carry is. It's just what it says, right? You don't have to conceal your
Right. It's
weapon.
visible. It's visible
Mhm.
to the world that
Mhm.
you have a firearm on your person.
Mhm. So what is your take on open carry?
Personally, I don't want you to know that I have a firearm on me because in many instances that may make me a target. They may want to assault me just because I have a gun, or they may want to assault me to take my gun. And I see so many videos of that, someone carrying open carry, and a person notices it, it could be in a convenience store, and before you know it, they are grabbing that person's gun and taking it off of them. I've only seen a couple of instances where they've used the person's gun on them, but in most cases they just wanted the gun and they wanted to get away. So that's one of the things that you put yourself at risk of when you're carrying open carry, and you're giving away the element of surprise. If they know that you have a gun on you and they want to rob you, in many cases they will just shoot you.
I happen to know of some older gentlemen giving that same advice to a young man uh, in a store, open carry, and they pulled him to the side and said, "Hey, young man, I just want to say, hey, when you just asking, you're asking for trouble. Like you don't want to open carry." And obviously they were someone with your type of knowledge, you know. And I think in his mind he thought open carry said, hey, don't mess with me, I can defend myself, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother thing that you just said. I can defend myself. uh, a lot of people that I run into, and they'll see that, oh, you have a firearms academy. Well, I have my concealed carry license. I said, oh, great. I said, when was the last time you practiced? What additional training have you had? Because the class only gets you the license. And with constitutional carry, they don't even have to show any type of capability. They just start carrying. And I'll ask someone who has concealed carry, I said, when was the last time you practiced? What had happened was,
Yeah.
well, I practiced 2 years ago. Shooting is a perishable skill. And if you're not continually training and practicing,
Okay.
you're not ready. You're not
Okay.
ready. I even have law enforcement and military people that have come to me and say, well, I was in the military for 25 years, 28 years. I was in law enforcement for 15 years. So in most cases, they're carrying their gun on a duty belt, which means all they have to do is reach down, unlatch the lock, whatever type of locking mechanism they have, draw the gun and start firing. Drawing from concealment, where you have to lift the shirt, grab the gun. There's so many more steps. Most people who are carrying conceal have never practiced drawing from concealment. Now, there's a national average that in order to survive a confrontation, a violent confrontation, you must be able to draw your gun from concealment and accurately hit your target in 2 seconds or less.
Wow.
Most people that I end up training, they're drawing from concealment, and first shot is anywhere from 3.5 to 5.5 seconds, and you're dead.
Wow. So how often should we practice?
I would say a minimum. I'm also a pastor, so I train our security at church.
Okay.
And we have a qualification for any of our security people that carry. It's a pretty stringent qualification. It's the FBI qualification plus the Florida Department of Law Enforcement qualification morphed together with some additional things that we've added. They have to pass that qualification, and then they must shoot a minimum of 100 rounds per month.
Got it. And do you suggest that people go to the shooting ranges, or, again, I'm a country girl, so I saw folks outside with the stuff on the tree, the targets on the tree, and the cans set up and whatever.
You can go to a range. Indoor ranges have a tendency to be a distraction because there's some people in there with some really big guns, and that it has a tendency to echo. I'm also a range safety officer. I'm a certified range safety officer, so I know how to keep a firing line safe. And I see so many bad things done at these shooting ranges.
Okay.
Which is scary to me because they'll have range safety officers, but the range safety officers only patrol every 15 minutes. There are a lot of
Mhm.
bad things that can happen in 2 seconds. I'll
Sure.
see someone pointing the gun sideways to the booth that's next to them, trying to unload it. And if they put their finger on the trigger, they just shot the person in the next booth. So you just still have to be careful. I
Mhm.
I recommend they find someone that can give them preferably one-on-one or small group training.
Mhm.
Because when we have our classes, we will normally have one instructor for every 3 people,
Mhm.
not one instructor for 25 people.
Mhm.
So that's some bad things can happen. So outdoors is okay. Again, make sure you get training and then practice what they've taught you. Because a
Mhm.
lot of people think they, and another thing, I asked someone that's carrying, Dr. Shaw, as I say, do you carry with one in the chamber? And they're like, no, I don't have one in the chamber. Then I say, you're not ready for an encounter. That takes
Woo!
training. But
Oh,
people are like,
Mr.
well,
Maynard, I'm not gonna make it. I'm
yeah,
not gonna make it without.
they're nervous having a
Yeah,
bullet in
one
the
in the trash.
chamber. But guess what? I've seen so many encounters because when someone confronts you, the perpetrator always chooses the time of the ambush. They know it's coming, you don't. So
Right.
at some point, when you comply or you feign compliance, they're going to turn and get distracted. It's normally at that point you can draw your gun to defend yourself. But under stress and under duress, most people who don't carry one in the chamber forget to load it. And they pull that gun and they go click,
And
and then the
nothing
person
happened.
turns around and goes boom, and it's over.
There's a whole big difference between click and boom. My
Yep.
goodness.
And the other thing, those that remember to load one in the chamber because they're under pressure, they don't pull the slide all the way back. They short stroke the slide. So now the bullet did not go in properly. They have a failure to feed. The gun has malfunctioned, and they go click, and then the other person turns around and goes boom. So you have to practice and you have to train to be able to draw from concealment with one in the chamber, not putting your finger on the trigger until you see your sights and you've made the decision to fire.
Mhm.
A lot of people who don't have the training, they try to train themselves and they'll grab the gun and put their finger at the same time. And we have this system in us called the sympathetic nervous system.
Mhm. Mhm.
So as you are stressed and you're grabbing the gun, you put more pressure on the trigger than you thought you had, and you've just shot
Yeah.
yourself in the leg. So I train people to you only put your finger on the trigger once you see your sights, and then you've made the decision to actually shoot.
Mm.
Outside of that, your finger should not be on the trigger. So there's just no good way to get around training. A lot of people try,
Yeah.
but they're setting themselves up for failure.
So um, with your knowledge about gun safety, do you understand why maybe some of these privileges are being trampled on right now as it relates to, gun laws and what's happening around the world, because I think, for me, I've been thinking more in terms of what's happening as it relates to crime,
Right.
right? Particularly, I work for an organization in which I do a lot around school safety.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so, thinking in terms of mass shootings and things like that. But it's so much more. It's just far more deeper than that, right? So do you kind of get maybe why we landed here and why there's so much work to do around this?
Yep. And I abhor anyone that uses a firearm illegally and
Mhm.
shooting innocent people. Uh, that's illegal. You should
Sure.
only use a firearm in defense in the purpose of self defense, where either you are in fear of great bodily harm or death
Mhm.
for you
Mhm.
or your loved ones, or even a third party you don't even know. You have the
Mhm.
right. We have the right as gun owners to defend somebody else's life. So
Mm.
people who are using them for the wrong motives,
Mm-hmm.
I don't condone that. At the
Sure.
same time, I do have an issue with me being a law-abiding citizen.
Mm-hmm.
Never drew my firearm in self-defense, and I came
Mm-hmm.
close one time when 8 guys tried to rob me.
Mm-hmm.
But they saw my posture and they said, he does not look like a soft target. They
Mm-hmm.
decided to do something else. So in that case, it saved me and the person that I was with having one on me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people who do wrong should be penalized. But
Mm-hmm.
those of us who are abiding by the laws, all of the laws, I don't think we
Mm-hmm.
should be penalized for people who have mental illness, who just are bad seeds.
Mm-hmm.
And they've made up in their mind they want to hurt someone with a firearm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, so who should own and carry a firearm? That's it.
I think I'm for anyone who can lawfully carry and
Mm-hmm.
physically be able to shoot. I've had some people that came to my class, and God bless the elderly. But I would try one of the things we do in a class. We show them how to load a magazine, how to load the magazine into the magazine well, and how to pull the slide back to lock the gun. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I've had some people who, because of a lack of dexterity or arthritis of some type, they're not able to load the magazine. They're not able to pull the slide back. I think in their case, they should not have one because it could get taken away and used on them. My aunt,
Okay.
even a couple
Mm-hmm.
of years ago, when we were in the midst of the coronavirus and crime was running amok, she wanted to learn. She wanted to get a gun. I said, I don't recommend it if you're not willing to put in the time.
Mm-hmm.
People who don't have control of their emotions, I don't think should
Mm-hmm.
have a gun.
Mm-hmm.
People who are not rational thinkers, who
Mm-hmm.
believe if you have a gun, they see the gun as a hammer, so every issue is a nail.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyone who has the mindset to understand that a life is a valuable thing that you cannot replace, and once you take it, it's gone. I think, and you first have the mindset to try to avoid trouble. People
Mm-hmm.
who have that capacity have the physical capacity to learn how to operate one safely and efficiently. I believe they should, but those who don't have the mental capacity or the physical capacity, I don't think they should own firearms.
Okay, so all that said, so after on the other side of the break, all that said, I'd like to know what are your thoughts around um then how do we screen? Like how do we figure this out, right? Cuz
Okay.
I just feel like there has to be a solution to this thing. How do we figure it out? How do we get the guns in the hands of the right folks? We'll talk about it when we come back on the other
Very
side
good.
of break, right here on Doctor to Doctor in the chat room on 94.7 FM. And we're still here with Mr. Tye Maner talking about gun safety, who should own a gun, who should carry a firearm. So, you had some really good information that you just shared prior to the break about, you know, who should own a gun and who should carry a firearm. But the thing is the how. So how do we get those firearms in the hands of the right folks?
Okay. I do a lot of work with our youth. For example, at my church this past summer, I did firearm safety classes for our youth. So we had two classes. We had one for ages 8 to 12 and then 13 to 17. And the first thing we did was we taught them safety. There's some basic rules. Treat every gun as if it's loaded. Always keep a firearm pointed in a safe direction. Always keep your finger outside the trigger guard until you're ready to shoot. Um, Always keep the gun unloaded until it's ready for use. Always be mindful of what's behind what you're shooting at. So I think it starts with education early on. And a
Okay.
lot of times we don't educate, because I remember my grandparents, my grandmom, I wanted to go learn how to swim, and her thought was, no, I'm not, you can't go learn how to swim because you'll drown.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? If I don't ever learn how to swim,
I
I'm at
probably
risk
will
later
drown.
of drowning. And I
Yeah.
hear the same thing sometimes with parents. I don't want them around guns because guns are dangerous. But guess what? You're not going to always have them at home. They're going to go to little Todd's home, or little
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy, or little Samantha's home.
Mm-hmm.
And that child may have access to a gun and pull it out. And because
Mm-hmm.
we haven't dealt with that curiosity factor many children have, that's when something bad can happen. You see,
Mm-hmm.
this year in March, I had to bury an 18-year-old
Mm-hmm.
because he was never trained about firearms, when they're safe, how to make them safe, what to do if you come in contact with one, run and tell an adult. But he was 18, and somebody had a gun wherever he was, and he twirled it. And as he was twirling it, it went off and shot him in the head and killed him. I mean, a young man that had promise, he had scholarships, and he was very athletic. He's gone now because no one invested in him to help him understand the dangers.
So, are there more deaths per year related to either accidents and maybe even suicide than there are actually like crime?
I won't say there's more deaths to suicide and accidents than there are to crime. I think crime is just so prevalent. I
Mm-hmm.
think more people are shot as a result of criminal acts.
Okay.
But yes, do accidents happen? Absolutely. Why
Mm-hmm.
do accidents happen? It's because of a lack of knowledge
Mm-hmm.
in the majority of instances,
Mm-hmm.
or a break in the four rules. And what I tell my students, if you follow the four basic rules,
Okay.
always keep your firearm pointed in a safe direction.
Mm-hmm.
Always keep your finger outside the trigger guard until you've made a conscious decision to shoot and you're looking at your sights.
Mm-hmm.
Always treat every firearm as if it's loaded.
Mm-hmm.
Always keep firearms unloaded until ready for use. If you practice those four principles right there, it's virtually impossible to have an accident.
Mm-hmm.
Impossible.
So, what circumstances do justify use of force?
For example, here's some scenarios I will give in my class. I said, for example, Dr. Shaw, what's your favorite vehicle? If your
Off the top,
your dream vehicle,
Corvette.
Corvette, what color?
I'm gonna take a metallic blue.
Okay, guess what? You just got the car of your dreams,
Mm-hmm.
a metallic blue Corvette, and you went to a department store. And as you're coming out, there's a guy with a sledgehammer, and
Mm-hmm.
he's knocking off your side mirrors, and he just hit the front windshield, and he's putting dents all over your vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a firearm on you.
Mm-hmm.
Should you defend your property?
Oh Lord, I'm gonna say yeah.
Okay, you are going to jail.
Yeah,
You're going to
because it's
jail
because it's
because
property.
because in the eyes of the law, a life
You'd
is
have to kill
far
him.
more valuable. But you'd be amazed how many people say, "Listen, he messed up my car, he gets some lead. We're gonna take a bite out of crime.
Y'all, I'm going to jail.
You going to jail? You look good in red and black. Hopefully you look good in blaze orange too, or stripes." Because in every court, property, life is more important than property.
Sure,
You
and that
should
makes
have
so much sense.
you
That
should
makes
have
sense.
auto insurance that would take care of the damage he did.
Mm-hmm.
So no, you're not justified. You can call 911 and talk about someone damaging your property. So no, you're not justified. But guess what? Suppose now he turns away from your car and he looks at you and he has a sledgehammer. He walks towards you with it raised.
Mm-hmm.
Are you justified now?
Sounds like I'm my life. I could think that my life is in danger, and I am justified.
Absolutely.
Uh
And,
huh.
and that's what you need to be able to prove. You have to be able to prove that you were in fear of
Mhm.
your life
Mhm.
or great bodily harm or someone with you. And watching what he just did to this car and now what he looks like he's reportedly willing to do to you. And
Mhm.
there's something called disparity of force.
Mhm.
9 times out of 10, a man is bigger and stronger than a woman.
Mhm.
All right. So the fact that he's a man,
Mhm.
that's one disparity. And also
Mhm.
the fact that he has a hammer, that's a second disparity. So you are justified in defending yourself.
Mhm.
Now, people are asked the question, well, how many times should I shoot him? Uh, what we teach is you shoot to stop the threat. At the
Okay.
point they are no longer a threat to you or your
Mhm.
loved ones, that's when you stop shooting. You don't shoot him. When he drops the hammer and he turns and goes in a different direction, you stop shooting.
Okay. So how difficult or how easy in a situation like that is it for a person that's feeling threatened? Your anxiety is through the roof, and that adrenaline is flowing, and you got to be rational. How you got to be rational about, okay, if he or she is no longer a threat. I'm serious when I ask this question because I'm just thinking about somebody depending on from a that has just mentally snapped, maybe in a situation where they've been constantly abused by somebody, physically abused or whatever. And this particular incident, they decide that, hey, I'm defending myself this time, and and they just lay on that trigger and never let up. Right? I mean,
Okay.
yeah.
That could be argued by a defense attorney.
Okay.
That situation you just said could be
Mhm.
argued by a defense attorney. That
Mhm.
in that moment, after years and years of abuse,
Mhm.
you defended yourself and
Mhm.
was not able to stop because
Mhm.
of an emotional situation you encountered at that point in time.
Okay.
But suppose for a moment, with your car, your beautiful metallic blue Corvette,
Mhm.
is that which is now destroyed,
Mhm.
not justified to shoot that person. But now they turn towards you with that hammer raised and
Mhm.
coming towards you. You're justified to shoot them.
Mhm.
And they fall down. You
Mhm.
should stop shooting.
Mhm.
But no, in this case, you look at all of the damage they just did to your brand new car. I mean, it got delivered this morning. You haven't had a whole day. And then you fire 3 more times into that person. Those last
You just changed the trajectory of your future.
That's right. Those
Mhm.
four were justified. Those first four
Mhm.
shots were justified.
Mhm.
Those last three will land you in prison.
Wow.
You
Wow,
only
wow,
shoot
wow.
to stop the threat.
So I'm at the department store in this scenario. Um where what other places, I'm assuming I can have it at the department store, am I legally allowed to have a firearm?
Okay. There are quite a few places you cannot have firearms, which and each local laws may vary, state laws may vary, and there are also federal laws. You're
Mhm.
not allowed to have them in a federal building of any type.
Okay.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Um, you're not even, believe it or not, most people don't know this, but that includes the U.S. Post Office. As a
Okay.
matter of fact, you're not even supposed to have your gun in your vehicle on post office
At the
property.
post office. Okay.
All right, we'll leave it there.
Okay.
We'll leave that there. So any federal building, any terminal in the airport, no schools of any types.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, where else? We can
And back in my day, I remember the boys coming in the pickup trucks in high school, the shotgun up in the back window on the gun rack. Crazy.
Yep, yep. Now, you're not supposed to take them into places of nuisance. like a
Mhm.
club, nightclub, a bar,
Yeah.
uh,
Uh-huh.
in a restaurant that has a bar that you can sit around. That's
Mhm.
against the law for you to sit at that bar, whether you have a concealed carry license or constitutional carry.
Okay.
Now, you can sit in a booth that's adjacent to the bar, but you cannot sit at the bar. And this is my argument for why, even if you're a constitutional carry, you should get some type of training, because the same laws that apply to concealed carry apply to constitutional carry. They just have no requirement to learn the laws or get
Mhm.
training
Mhm.
or become proficient with the
Mhm.
gun that they just purchased.
Mhm.
So yeah,
So
go
go
ahead.
ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so they can say, well, I didn't know. Now, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to be here with a gun. Again, they're going to say ignorance of the law is no excuse. Now, you
Mhm.
will find there are some businesses, for example, my church, we say no firearms. We have enough law enforcement, we have enough trained security to defend everybody in the church.
Mhm.
So you will see some places that have movie theaters, bowling alleys.
Mhm.
There's one institution in my area. I know I see the sign that says no weapons allowed
Mhm.
in here. Now,
Mhm.
that's their company policy. That's not a law. You're not
So
breaking the law.
now I understand the difference between a policy, an individual's company, agency's laws, I mean policies versus the law. But what's the distinction as it relates to in the court of law if
Okay.
it was a policy versus a law?
If you break the law, you probably will be arrested.
Okay.
And the district attorney will determine whether or not they're going to
Mhm.
bring charges.
Mhm.
And if he feels he has a good enough case against you, he'll bring charges, uh, and a jury will determine whether
Mhm.
you're guilty or not guilty.
Mhm.
If it's a company's policy, for example, let's say I decide, okay, there are too many shootings in movie theaters.
Mhm.
I know a list of places where that's where the person went, because you got a large group of people on an opening night of a show, and active shooter's goal is to do the most damage, to kill the most people in the shortest period of time.
Yeah.
So because I know that, I may say to myself, okay, I see the sign, but I'm carrying my gun anyway. I haven't
Okay.
broken the law. I broke
Okay.
their policy. So if
Mhm.
they come up to me for whatever reason, they see the print in my shirt or my jacket. Excuse me,
Mhm.
sir, but do you have a firearm on you? Yes, I do. Well, I'm sorry, but we have a policy that no firearms allowed in here. Okay,
Mhm.
my apologies. Can I take this back to my car? No, we're going to have to ask you to leave the premises. Okay, no
Mhm.
problem. At that point, if I leave the premises, no harm, no foul. But if I say, listen, no, I'm within my rights, you're not going to tell me what to do. Now that's
Mhm.
trespassing, because they've asked me to leave. And
Gotcha.
now I will have an encounter with the law.
Mhm. So I think it's safe to say that you believe that everyone should get training if they're going
Yes.
to own and carry a firearm. So where should they get training? Where do you recommend they get their training?
Train with someone that has the certifications, the accreditations, whether it's with the NRA, great organization. There's another organization called the USCCA, which stands for the United States Concealed Carry Association. They
Mhm.
have some amazing instructors. I have been certified by another organization called Range Master
Mhm.
to be an instructor. They're
Mhm.
one of the toughest, most stringent certifications to get in the United States. Just
Okay.
make sure you have someone who is trained and they are genuinely interested in you becoming proficient. There are a lot of trainers out there, instructors, that's concerned about making a buck. There, for example, my training class, my concealed carry class is 4.5 hours.
Mhm.
And we cover everything: safety, types of ammunition, the fundamentals of marksmanship. We teach you how to load and unload a gun safely. We take
Mhm.
you to the range and we watch you fire to make sure you do every aspect of it safely. There are some other people where I live that you can go to at a gun show. Their course is more expensive. You're done in 90 minutes, and they have you fire one shot into a tank of sand, and you get your certification. But you're not ready. You're
Mm-hmm.
not ready. You should not be certified at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So find people who are certified. Look at the Google reviews
Mm-hmm.
to see what
Yeah.
people have to say about them.
Mm-hmm.
If people look at my Google reviews, I have all 5 stars because
Mm-hmm.
we're passionate
Mm-hmm.
about training. So find an instructor that's passionate about the art
Okay.
of using firearms.
Okay. So back to our scenario. So this guy has smashed my metallic blue Corvette, and now he has turned towards me with the hammer or the whatever raised, and I feel threatened. And I shoot. And I shoot until I feel there's no longer a threat. Um, and I can justify that part,
Right.
right? So what steps do I take after I've defended myself?
Okay. So you should be the first to call 911.
Okay.
uh, Whoever calls 911 first gets brownie points.
Gotcha.
So there may be witnesses that saw it. Uh, you want to beat the witnesses. You want to beat the
Mm-hmm.
person that you just had to defend yourself against
Mm-hmm.
because the person who calls first, their story carries most weight.
Mm-hmm.
I recommend that individuals be composed
Mm-hmm.
when you call law enforcement. Oh my God, I just shot somebody. I can't believe I did that. I can't. Oh my God, what have I done? Everything you say can and will be used against you. So
Okay.
you didn't mean to shoot him. So it was an accident. You just took somebody's life not thinking it through. So
Hmm.
you got to be careful because they're recording everything.
Okay.
So what I and various attorneys say different things, but what I've kind of told, and I would tell anyone and everyone, I am not an attorney, so check with your attorney first. Okay, we pause
Mm-hmm.
for that disclaimer.
Mm-hmm.
uh, but I would say something to the fact of, yes, I was the victim of a crime,
Mm-hmm.
and I just had to defend myself. My name is so and so. I'm at this location. Please send law enforcement and emergency medical services.
Mm-hmm.
I would not say, "Hey, I just shot someone. He gave me no choice. I do it again. I'm not mad about the less." And in this situation, less is more.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you say you had a gun and you sound amped up, that's what the person on the radio on the phone is going to transfer to the law enforcement officers that are coming. That
Yeah.
someone had a gun. We know he shot one person. We
Mm-hmm.
don't know what we're going into, so they're going to be somewhat amped up. But if I
Okay.
said that I was the victim of a crime,
Mm-hmm.
I had to defend myself. We don't know what that looks like, and
Exactly.
what I recommend is you hang up the phone immediately. Don't They're going to try to get you to stay on the phone with them. The longer you're on the phone, the greater the odds of you saying something that you didn't mean to say, that you
Mm-hmm.
won't even remember you said, but
Yeah.
you will hear it again in court.
Yeah.
So they then show up, put your gun away. All right. Put it in a safe place. Don't even have it on you. You
Mm-hmm.
may sometimes, if necessary, you may need to have to leave that scene to get to
Mm-hmm.
safety because
Mm-hmm.
there may be a crowd or a group of people who were friends with that person.
Yeah. Yeah.
So make sure you get away to safety. Tell them where
Mm-hmm.
you are, where you want to come. They're going to try to ask you questions. Right now, the most traumatic thing probably in your life has just happened, and
Yeah.
you're not going to be of the
Yeah.
mind to say the most appropriate things. Just
Mm-hmm.
say to them, I felt I had to defend myself. He came at me with a knife. I'm going to cooperate. With all due respect, at this point, I would like to speak to an attorney first.
Okay. Awesome. Great information. Great information. I know people have learned so much from this discussion. I know I have. We do want you to come back.
My
We
pleasure.
thank you for taking this moment to be here today. And as always, I thank you guys for taking a moment to hang out with me each Saturday, right here, same chat channel, same chat time. And we will see you next Saturday at this same time, right here on Doctor to Doctor in the chat room on 94.7 FM. See you then.